Hello, I'm joined today by Martin Kriener, who is Director General of the World Broadband Association and former CEO of TM Forum. Hello, Martin. Good to see you.
Hey, Ken.
Okay, we're going to be talking about WBBA. So what is it and why is it needed?
Yeah, I mean, the WBBA is the World Broadband Association, and it's been created really to focus on the future evolution of the broadband industry, primarily the fixed broadband industry. There's a lot of initiatives out there focusing on mobile broadband, of course. WBBA really came out, it's probably about 2 years in gestation, and it came out of some discussions initially in the ITU where it felt that there was nobody out there really looking at the future evolution of the industry from a business perspective. And so it issued a circular as these things happen, and a number of companies met, and there was agreements and workshops and so on to form a new industry association that will really look, I suppose, upstream at where broadband is going, not at the technical standards, because that's well covered by a range of different industry organizations like ETSI and Broadband Forum and ITU itself, but more at the how it is used in the industry and how to influence the acceleration of that broadband so that it achieves the potential that we all hope it has.
Okay, well, maybe you can highlight some WBBA initiatives and how members contribute and benefit from them.
Yeah, so the WBBA really started looking at a range of different initiatives. If you imagine creating an industry organization, as you mentioned there, Ken, I'm the ex-president and CEO of the TM Forum, so I've spent many years working in industry associations, and really to get an industry association, a new one with big ambitions started, you need to tackle it from I suppose, an organizational point of view. You need to attract members. You need to begin to build a profile and a position and a recognition in the industry in terms of what we're trying to achieve in the WBBA. And you need to get things rolling within the members itself and the existing members. And so when you think about some of the initiatives, the best way to do that is to get a number of teams identifying some of the, I suppose, low-hanging fruit topics that need to be addressed. And so the WBBA has kind of got 5 initial projects or work groups in mind. It's got 3 of them underway. So it's certainly very interested in the concept of a generational roadmap. So from that point of view, what we mean is, if you think of mobile industry has really done a very, very good job in terms of creating the concept of 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, as a way of explaining new capabilities that are emerging, and explaining both to consumers and to vertical industries and to regulators and governments and so on. And so we've been looking at a similar sort of concept in the broadband industry. And there's initiatives already running in ETSI called F5G, which is really focused on the technical definition of the capabilities of what each of these generations has been in the past, the current generation and the next generation of broadband. And so we've been looking at that and begun to look at that within WBBA on the next generation of capabilities that are going to emerge and how they're going to be valuable for consumers and also for vertical industries. I spend a lot of my time looking at the impact of ICT into vertical industries like manufacturing and health and automotive. And you can really see that the requirements from those industries are similar in many ways to each other, but each has their own detailed requirements. And we need to understand that and make sure that broadband is delivering what the vertical industry needs. So that's one of the work groups. We have a second work group really looking at trying to capture the excellence that's underway at the moment. The WBBA, as its name suggests, is a global initiative. And so we're not just talking about the broadband industry for the developed world. We're not just talking about the broadband industry in the West or in Europe. We're talking about the world broadband industry. And so from that point of view, we need to understand what is excellence in Germany, what is excellence in Japan, what is excellence in China, what's excellence in the USA, and to capture those as interesting case studies that can provide a template that other operators and so on can try and emulate. So that's a second work group, which is really capturing the excellent case studies of broadband in the global industry today, and also trying to map out some of the use cases for the future. The third initiative that we have underway is really around the whole area of sustainability, environmental sustainability, and the role the broadband industry has to play in the challenge we all face on global environmental sustainability. And that's really in three areas. One is looking at, of course, the energy consumption of the operators themselves. So the direct footprint that an operator has in operating a broadband service. The second one we would term the handprint of the broadband industry. And so the environmental handprint is how it influences other industries to change, how it enables other industries to change. I mentioned manufacturing and healthcare and automotive, and you can add into that mines and ports and shipping and so on. And there is you can draw a direct line between the broadband capabilities that are being offered and the ability of those industries to transform themselves in order to be more environmentally sustainable. And then the third area is around the circular economy and the level of waste that we all produce, the waste that's produced by the operators themselves, the waste that's produced by the supply side feeding into the operators, in terms of glass and batteries and electronics and so on. And so how can we identify ways to reduce that waste? So those are three key areas that we're looking at within the sustainability work group. And then there's two other work groups that we're beginning to scope out. One around the I suppose, autonomous operations and intelligent operations of the broadband network. And that is a topic that I've been fascinated in myself for many years. There's an awful lot of investments, a big challenge. It's very complex. You can achieve autonomy using AI for certain aspects of the telco world, but it's an incredibly complicated machine. And so how do you achieve real autonomous operations? And then the final one is around the network topology and the specific capabilities, maybe that how you would construct future network topologies so that they meet the needs of the end users. And those end users, I've mentioned a lot about vertical industries, but of course, end users as consumers is hugely important as well. And there's a lot of talk and dialogue in the industry at the moment about metaverse and AR, VR, XR type of capabilities. And all of those are going to be incredibly bandwidth hungry, and they're going to want fixed to mobile solutions. So gamers may well start in a fixed environment, shift to a mobile environment, shift back to a fixed environment and require 1 gig bandwidth, maybe 10 gig bandwidth, depending on the types of capabilities we're talking about. So you need to have a real understanding of what network topologies and capabilities are going to enable those complex new environments. So those are the 5 key initiatives that we have underway.
Okay, so thanks, Martin. There's clearly a wide range of WBBA initiatives and work groups. Maybe you can just explain who can get involved in them and how do they go about getting involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously it is open. First of all, I suppose the membership is open to all. If you just in the last few minutes of what I've talked about, you can see that there's an awful lot of different stakeholders in the industry that we're very interested in. I've mentioned operators, and of course the supply side, the direct supply side, the hardware and software supply side to those operators. But then there's a wide range of other players that are going to have an influence in this. Of course, we need to influence governments and regulators. We need to influence and work closely with the cloud players, the OTTs, the hyperscalers. We will need to work very closely with the device manufacturers. I mentioned AOR, DOR, and so on. But an awful lot of the demand and the draw on broadband capabilities is going to come from the innovation from the device players, and of course the end users themselves, the people who are consuming it directly, or the people who are developing maybe the software that's going to consume the capability. So our membership is envisaged to be a very broad church, bringing in all of those different views. In terms of any of those members can get involved directly in any of the working groups, and can contribute, can volunteer themselves to take a chair role or a leadership role in any of the working groups as well. So that is the current operation approach.
And just moving forward, just to put you on the spot a little bit, what are the top priorities of the World Broadband Association?
Maybe I split that into two parts, right? Because obviously I mentioned earlier, there's a set of priorities that any industry organization needs to have. It needs to make itself a viable organization with a governance structure, and solid financial footing of the membership, and it'll have events and so on. So that is, of course, that's table stakes for any industry organization. It needs to establish some very good and compelling work groups, and those work groups need to produce some good and compelling output. And that is, as I've mentioned, is underway. We need to grow membership, and I've talked about the breadth, the broad church of membership that we will target on, and conversations like this and events that we've held in the past. We held a big event at the end of last year that to attract a load of new members. We've got a big event later on, the Network X event in October. But also we will have smaller events running through the year, and there'll be publications and so on. So in terms of growing that membership, and we need to start promoting the key issues that are facing the industry. So if I've kind of had that's the micro scale, the things that we need to do as an organization. But the big issues that the industry are facing are really all around addressing inequality of broadband access, the development of impactful regulation and policy. We need to ensure that the future of broadband is of a nature that the operators can develop a sustainable return on investment and a stable return on investment. It won't just be a race to the bottom, so it needs to be constructed in that sort of way. We need to enable and ensure the vertical industry innovation. I've mentioned the metaverse, and I've mentioned vertical industries and other areas. So we need to be able to enable that. We need to promote an excellence in end-to-end experience for the users, and that's going to become increasingly important as we start looking at the level of deterministic networks and determinism in the delivery of these services. One of the barriers to broadband is always going to be the chat. How reliable is it going to be in terms of guaranteed delivery? And I've been in the industry forever, and we've talked about 5 nines, and a lot of the discussions are talking now about 6 nines reliability and millisecond or sub-millisecond latency. But being able to ensure an end-to-end experience for the users is going to be a really critical part for the big industry. And then, we need to ensure we've got future-proof networks. I mentioned the concept of future-proof networks and sustainability. But of course, these future-proof networks need to, and practices need to support carbon goals. So we've got the micro issues of creating an organization that's going to be viable and useful and have a longevity. And then we've got the big issues that we're focusing on over the coming years as an industry.
Well, thanks very much, Martin, for giving us that detailed update on the important industry work that the World Broadband Association is doing. So thank you very much, Martin.
Yeah, pleasure, Ken.